uncut, unedited.
All right, people, we
You already know what it
uncut,
is.
unedited.
Live.
We streaming on 4 platforms today. So we on Facebook, YouTube, my Crime Chaser page, and we have a guest in the house, and we want to hear from her before she comes. Just want to let a few people come in and recognize some of the people. Come on into the chat. Sure. This is where we tell the truth and shame the devil. If you have any questions, feel free to call. We taking phone calls as well. I got my main man Mark here with me. You know what? We need to tag team work Inglewood. I forgot to that. We working backwards. Okay. All right. We're here. So we got 35 people on. So let's get started. So I want everybody to introduce themselves. We know, okay, well, I'm Martin Johnson, the Crime Chaser. I'm here in conjunction with Teamwork Inglewood, working with Mark. So,
and I'm Ashley Bishel. I'm a staff attorney at Uptown People's Law Center.
All right, today we're here to talk about criminal backgrounds and housing. So many times I hear individuals talk about how they were denied an apartment because they have a background. Well, Cook County's changed that. So we got Ashley from the Uptown People's Law Center here to update you, not just you that are looking for a unit, but landlords. Landlords need to know so they don't put themselves in harm's way. So Ashley, can you give us a little bit, just what is the Fair Housing Act?
Yeah, so it's called the Just Housing Amendment, and it's a law that's the law in all of Cook County. So not just Chicago, but all of these surrounding suburbs too. And what it does is it makes people who have any kind of criminal background, not just convictions, but any kind of history with the criminal legal system, makes them a protected class. So they can't get discriminated against when they're applying for housing. So that all sounds really good. But the law also does have like specific mechanisms to make it harder for landlords to discriminate against people with records, or it's supposed to. We'll get to, the problem that nobody knows about this law in a second. But what the law does is it changes the way that landlords have to process your application when you apply for an apartment for everyone. That's the big thing it does. And the big thing that it does is it separates a background check, a criminal background check, from all the other stuff that you have to do when you apply for an apartment. So I can go into this right now, unless you want to pause here, ask some questions, but I can dive right in.
Go right here.
Go right.
Okay.
Dive right in.
Okay, so let's say I'm applying to an apartment. I go to the website and I'm on, the application. I'm filling out my name and I'm filling out, my address and all this stuff. And I come across a checkbox that says, check here if you have any criminal history. That's illegal now. They are not supposed to have that on that form at all. So that's kind of the first thing that most people run into. Or sometimes they'll go into a leasing office and they'll fill out a paper application. And if there's not a checkbox, the leasing agent will say something like, okay, we'll just take this in the back and we'll run a background check. That's also illegal. They can't do that. So they can't ask you to do a background check before you've applied for the apartment. So you apply for the apartment normally. So I'm here, I'm filling out my application. They can ask me about my credit score. They can ask me about, my income, all of that normal stuff. And then I turn it in. And if they want to run a background check on me, they can, but they have to tell me that I've passed all the other stuff first. So they have to say your credit's good, your references are good, you're making enough money for this apartment, you're approved pending this background check. So then I'm like, okay, you can do the background check. They have to tell me they're running it, and then they have to give me a copy of it once they're done. So if they decide if something comes up and they say we're going to, they reject me because of something on the background check, I have to be able to see what they were looking at.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is that a chart? Do we have to pay for them to do a background check?
You don't have to pay for them to do the background check. I think you're actually not supposed to do that at all. I think you are allowed to, landlords are allowed to ask for a non-refundable fee, like application fee, as long as they tell you it's non-refundable, because it sucks.
So is that fee, is it included for the background check?
Well, here's the thing. If they say you're paying for the background check, the criminal background check, I don't think they're supposed to do that.
Okay.
I think they can do it for a credit check because that's what my landlord did.
Right.
But I don't think that they're allowed to tell you you're paying for your own criminal background check.
Okay.
So they can't do that. They're running the background check. They give you the copy of the background check, and then you get a chance to look at it. And here's where it gets interesting, because the only thing that they're allowed to consider on the background check are convictions from the last 3 years. So everything else that might come up on the background check, they're not supposed to look at.
So if I did 3 years, right? I got convicted 3 years ago, and I did 3 years, and I get out. Can they use that against me?
No. So it's the conviction, not your release date. So
Okay.
if you were convicted 5 years ago and you got out yesterday, they can't look at that.
So does this apply to just about all backgrounds?
So
Even Chester the molester?
well,
We go different.
we went right in. There's one big exception, and that's people who are on either sex offender registries or are under sex offender residency requirements.
What about gun registry?
No, and murder registry is also protected under the JHA. So if you're on the murder registry, they're not, and the murder conviction was more than 3 years ago, they aren't supposed to look at it.
Okay.
So that also includes stuff that's not conviction. So if you've got like an arrest, citations, juvenile convictions, expunged records, sealed records, pardons records, deferral programs, diversion programs, anything like that would show up, they still aren't supposed to consider it because it's not a conviction from within the last 3 years.
So what I'm still confused on, this is what I'm confused on. So if I go apply for apartment and they ask for an application fee, which is most of the time non-refundable. So that includes the credit check. And I guess I'm assuming the criminal background check after I pay, after they do the findings of me, my credit, everything approved, then the next process is my criminal background, right? Okay, so that's how it's supposed to be in that order.
Yeah, exactly.
So now suppose I pass all the credit stuff, my reference check out to be okay, my job, my income. Now I have this one thing lingering on my head, a case that's pending.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do they do pending cases?
I'm going to give my annoying lawyer answer, which is it depends. So here's the thing about the Just Housing Amendment. It's new. It's really, really new. It came into effect in February 2020. And a lot of other stuff was happening in February 2020. So not a lot of people were paying attention to it. And that's why a lot of people don't know about this. But part of the reason that I don't have a straight answer to your question, I have a guess, is that it's just so new that we haven't had a lot of cases. So we don't really know what this looks like a lot of the time in practice. That said, I would argue, if you came to me and you're a lawyer and you're my client, I would argue that no, it shouldn't count because it's not a conviction.
Right.
It's not a conviction within the last 3 years. So, I can't say for sure that that's going to apply, but that's what it says in the law. It has to be a conviction, and that's not a conviction.
So, say an individual, we run into this a lot. A young lady wants to rent an apartment, then they say, well, who's going to be in there? And then she'll say, well, my boyfriend. And then they'll say, well, we need to run his background. And does that same rule apply to his background?
Yeah. So anybody who's going to be on the lease, you got to do that whole process. So they got to, if they want to look at his, credit or whatever, they have to do all that stuff first. And then they can do the background check. And then, they would have to do the same thing, give them both a copy of their background check. And so they have an idea of what to look at. And then I'm gonna take this example a little bit more. So let's say the boyfriend has something come up. Let's say that he's got a recent conviction for breaking and entering or something in the last like last year, something like that. So the question here is, can they deny them the apartment? And the answer is no. The answer is no. They still can't do it just because you have a conviction in the last 3 years. They still have to go through some more processes. So they have to do something in this, hypothetical. So, comes back, the boyfriend has his copy of the background check, and he has five business days to offer more information to the landlord.
Mm-hmm.
So if he did a deferral program, if he has, like more context to the breaking, entering, the example that I like to give is, somebody who was trespassing, but it was, that person was unhoused and it was winter and they were sleeping in somebody's garage. So, you can give more context to whatever happened, and he can also dispute the information. So if that's like not him, for whatever reason it popped up on his background check and he was like, that wasn't me, then he has that amount of time to dispute it. And then if the landlord still wants to deny that person, they have to give a written reason why that person poses a safety risk. That's the only way that they can deny somebody.
So that's someone that's who has been convicted within the 3-year period, right?
Yep.
So they still have to give a reason for denying them, right?
Now, who
Right.
gets a reason? Do they give it to the person that's applying?
Yeah, they have to give it to the person who they're denying. And then that person, if they want to, has that information if they want to appeal that decision.
Okay.
And what would the appeal go to?
The appeal will go to the Cook County Commission of Human Rights. So that's an administrative body. So it's not like it's part of the legal system, but it's like not like the circuit court. It's a different body. And they're the ones who enforce the Cook County Human Rights Ordinance, which is what this law is part of.
Okay. So you said the word enforce. What does enforcement look like?
Yeah, well, that's a good question.
That's a good question.
Enforcement in theory is supposed to look like people who experience discrimination in violation of this law. So people who have records and are discriminated against in housing, they're supposed to be able to file complaints with the Cook County Commission on Human Rights. And then there's an administrative process that goes into effect. And then, the Cook County, like they're supposed to mediate this dispute between the landlord and the person. And then in the end, if they can do like a hearing, and then sometimes they can get fees, and the commission will fine the landlord. And then the commission will also like award monetary damages to people if they've experienced emotional distress because of this. So that's what it looks like on paper. In practice, it's kind of hard to say because it's so new that not a lot of people are bringing these claims. In my experience, what I've seen get results, because it's a little bit faster, is people at like lawyers like me at the Uptown People's Law Center will write something called a demand letter, which is basically just like a letter that's a little more formal than just calling somebody up and being like, hey, you broke the law. But that's basically what it is. We write this letter saying, hey, you denied this person housing in violation of this law. We will file a complaint against you if you don't, work with us here. And a lot of times, because a lot of landlords just don't know about this, they're not doing it on purpose. They'll be like, oh, okay. And they'll work with either us or
your services are free.
We're free.
You're free. So let me tell you what I heard, right?
Yeah.
So I heard you say that if I've been out less than 3 years, I apply for an apartment, and then the guy denies me, landlord denies me. And then I got 5 days to say, look, I got this case because I was sleeping in somebody's abandoned building because my woman was out of town, or I didn't even have no woman back then, but I got one now that likes me, right? And want me to move in with her, but that's just how that went. And then you say no, the landlord say no. So I come to you, I say, he said no. And I already asked him. He said no. Then your office contact him and say, hey, you can't do that to him. And he said, look, I do what I want to do. And then your office say, you think so? Well, then you take us to a hearing. You take me, support me by taking me to a hearing. You do that for free.
Yeah.
You take me to a hearing, and the hearing officer going to say, look, either give him the place, one, or give him the place and some money, two, or is there three?
Well, I think at that point, if I was involved, I would be like, give him a place and the money. We're not.
And the money,
we're
yeah.
gonna have money involved now.
Money. Okay, good.
But yeah, that's what it would look like.
Well, let me interject there. Now, supposedly, the landlord says we rented the apartment out already. That's possible.
That is possible. That's a big, not an exception, but that's part of the law, is that they don't have to hold the unit for you, but I would argue, and like literally, like if you come to me and that you've been in this situation, what I would say in my demand letter and my complaint is this person experienced discrimination and they need to be compensated for it. So either, you can give them another unit, but I'm still going to argue that there's been harm here and they deserve to be compensated for it, because the harm is not like, so the apartment is part of it, but what really is the underlying problem here is that they experienced illegal discrimination. So it's good if they get that unit that they wanted, but it's not that's not necessarily the focus. Does that
Okay.
answer your question?
But they're going. So if they give the unit away, to answer this question, they got to give me some money.
I mean, I would say
You're going to demand.
I'm gonna see if they can. I'm gonna make them give you some money. Hopefully,
You're going to make them because they're wrong.
Yeah, exactly. They broke the law.
And so while it's not punitive, it's what?
It's compensatory. So like, it's not a punishment for the landlord. It's more like you experienced discrimination and you should get some money for that.
'Cause I'm emotionally wrecked now.
Yeah.
I don't know where to live. She don't quit me because.
Yeah, well, it was illegal. Like that was illegal
Right.
discrimination. It was just like, if somebody discriminates based on race or gender or whatever, like that's all, that's
Okay.
kind of the same idea. The harm is the discrimination.
Can you give us any examples like of any of the people you represented?
I can give you a couple examples.
Okay.
Well, we'll start with so let's say that there's somebody who like 10 years ago had a domestic violence conviction, and he's had a really hard time getting housing since then because nobody will rent to him, and so he applies to a building. They run a background check. They do the thing that they told you can't do. They say, okay, here, thanks for the application. We're going to run a background check, in the back. And then they call him the next day and say, no, you don't have the apartment. And so then, he comes to us. And actually what happened in this situation is, we did the full intake, which is what we do when people call us for legal help. And I let him know that this is the law. This, here are all the ways they violated that. And he said, well, actually, they called me to come back in. And what had happened was the landlord that denied him the unit was actually a landlord that our law office had dealt with in the past for this exact same issue. So they had denied somebody based on their record, and that was illegal. And we made them do a compliance training like in April. And I think what happened was somebody in that management office remembered that they had that compliance training, and they remembered that what they did was not legal. And so when he came back that next day, they offered him the unit and he took it and he moved in. So so it was great for me because I didn't have to do anything.
So you say compliance training. Are you saying that you're willing to train landlords?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. We've got like checklists and everything.
Is there a cost for that?
Yeah, they can give us a call.
I know a cost. Do landlords have to pay for your training?
No, it's free.
It's free?
It's free.
Okay, look at that, landlords. I just got y'all something free. All right.
Also, you gave me some links. I guess I'll post them up later. So
Yeah, whatever you want.
Okay, I'll post some links.
Yeah, so those are just those are links to our website. The Cook County has a really nice FAQ on the Just Housing Amendment. There's actually a lot more to it because I've talked a lot about landlords and tenants because that's the situation we come across most often, but it applies to all real estate transactions. So even if you're like buying property, and it applies to not just like the application, but ads. So if you put something in an ad that's like no felons are allowed to apply, like that's illegal. They can't do that. So would encourage, people who are interested in it to look at the Cook County FAQ. I also have the link of the law itself so they can read it for themselves. And then there's a really nice article on Illinois Legal Aid Online.
Question.
Yes.
I've noticed like when you look for apartments and they say no bankruptcy. So they don't just say no bankruptcies, no evictions. And so that automatic disqualifies you. I see that a lot. I see it on the marketplace. I see it a lot.
The thing about that sucks because that's not criminal activity.
Okay.
So that's civil, and that's a different situation. So that is unfortunately not covered by this law.
Okay. I just wanted to know.
But yeah, that's a good question.
We're worrying about my people right now, man.
I
People
know
with backgrounds over here too.
I know it. I just had
to. Some of us ain't been out long enough to file bankruptcy.
that. Wow. Well, but I had to ask. It was here, it came to my mind, so.
If people have questions like that, Uptown Law Center is the one that they need to call.
Okay.
Yeah, give us a call.
Right. They
Right.
get free services for that.
we do.
So I can't really imagine. I was telling you earlier, I can't imagine. Well, maybe I'm wrong. Someone pay maybe a person to court that own a 2-flat. We got one vacancy, and he or she get discriminated against. I can't imagine them really taking the landlord or property owner to court, or I can't imagine that if they don't get it.
If they don't get
It's by being so small. In other words, if I own a 2-flat building and I illegally discriminate against somebody, in most cases, just me, I can't really even see them taking them to court or something, or try to complain against them.
yeah, I mean that's intimidating.
Corporations, yes, but big
That's
companies.
intimidating, but I think that it's still important to do it because I think it's different. I agree with you. I think it's different when it's like a big corporation or like the CHA versus like a little grandma or something. But it's still important for a couple of reasons. One, that's still the law. That's your rights. Like I think people, it's a little harder to tell grandma like, oh, you broke the law than like a big faceless corporation, but it's still, you're still discriminated against. Two, I think that, it's not necessarily like it has to be an adversarial thing right away. It's not like you're fighting them right away. Like a lot of times you can just like educate these smaller landlords, and a lot of times they just don't know. And three, I still think it's important to, if it gets to that level where you have to file a complaint, I think it's still really important to do it because this law is so new that we just don't have people doing that. And that means that the commission doesn't know how it's doing like out in Cook County. Like they just, they only hear about it if people file complaints. And two, like people like just don't know about it. And so then, if they file this complaint, then not only does the commission know about it, but, that person's friends all know that this person has filed something, and that landlord and all of their friends know that it files so that they filed something. So I still think it's important to do it, even though it's intimidating. And again, like call us at Uptown People's Law Center. We can put you in touch with resources. We can help you. It can be kind of like confusing and intimidating to like engage in.
Well, let me ask you a question. I got to throw this monkey wrench in this program.
Yeah, do it.
Do you guys have a place out south or out west?
That's a good question. No, we're in Uptown, but
they connect to us.
Yeah, okay.
So so we do a lot of stuff. We do Social Security disability. We do do a lot of prison litigation, civil litigation on behalf of prisoners. And we do housing, like general like evictions and stuff. And that like, evictions, whatever, we kind of keep that to the Uptown area. But because the JHA is so new and nobody knows about it, I'm allowed to just take whatever cases I want.
Okay.
Because just there's no we just don't, people don't know about, people aren't bringing these cases. So so generally, yeah, mostly Uptown. But JHA cases, housing discrimination based on your record, like anywhere can come to us.
Let me speak to the negative perspective,
Uh-oh.
right? Because a lot of people, with the bond thing, with the bond ending, and people walking around hyping up, people talking about the purge, and now they saying, not only they letting them out, now they making us rent to them. So and that's realistically right what people would think.
Yeah.
I'm getting out of here now. Let them out. Now we got to rent to them. Well, that's. The one thing about the purge is the hype too, right? The purge to me, grandma no longer has to go and put a house up or raise money to try to get someone out. They just come home now. Yeah. But we'll address the fear here.
Yes.
Right. How does that work around that?
I'm so glad you asked that. That's a great question. This is not just a law for people who have records. It's really a law for like communities because okay, so somebody's been convicted of a crime and, they're in the system. They do whatever, like that. I'm not going to get into like the whole criminal legal system and all of that, but they do what they were told to do. They play by the rules. They get out. That shouldn't follow them for the rest of their life. That should not follow them and change the trajectory of where they can live, where they can work, who they can live next to, the kind of neighborhoods they're allowed to live in. That's, the first part of it is, just because, somebody has something on their record, that doesn't mean that it should impact or it shouldn't impact the rest of their life. And this law is trying to help that happen. Second, I think it actually helps because, okay, so somebody like has a conviction and nobody's going to rent to them. Like if we're talking about recidivism, then they're going to end up in not a good situation where the living situation, whether they're in a bad neighborhood or whether they're unhoused or whether they're like having housing instability. And that's not a way to like kind of build your life back up. Right. So that's that, and they're also necessarily like separate from their community. So like that example you had of that boyfriend and that girl, like, you know, if they didn't have this like amendment, you know, he would have been separated from her, and like, and you know, they're part of the family unit together, and so that's not good for a community when like people are separated because of background. So it is helpful to kind of keep families together, to keep communities together. And I think that I would argue that that makes everyone safer, because you know, having stable housing is like one step to like having a safer and more stable community in life. So that is what I would say. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, let me just say this, going back earlier.
Yeah.
The process, going back to the process.
Yeah.
When you apply for an apartment for housing, all right, so they shouldn't ask anything about our criminal background.
At the beginning, no.
No. Okay, is it illegal for them to ask, or is it illegal for them just to take it? Well, I know is illegal.
They shouldn't ask. That is not something that should come up at the beginning of the process at all.
Is it illegal?
Yeah.
So you guys hear that out there. So when you go apply for apartment or housing, the property owner, the landlord, corporation should not ask you about your criminal background check until you pass
the rest of it.
Okay. That's want to get that.
So once he say, well, you got the apartment pending a background check, that's the only way he should ask. That background should come out of his mouth.
Exactly.
And then once he's done that background check, he has to give you a copy.
Yep.
And then tell you if he's denying you, he needs to give you reasons.
Well, he also has to give you time to say, you know, what you want to say about what's on that background. You have to have that 5 days to dispute whatever's on there or offer more information. And then if they still want to deny you, then they got to give you reasons.
And if he gives a reason, I just don't like people in my place with backgrounds.
I don't think that's a good reason.
Right.
That's not a good reason. And at that, if it's getting to that stage, like we're right now, like practically, like we are still in that first part where they're like still asking people about
right.
We have not gotten to the part where like I have not gotten to a case where we are arguing over like what's in the individualized assessment. If that's like, if we're at that stage, like hopefully they've talked to me or they've talked to another lawyer, and that lawyer can help like argue through it, because it really does have to be specific to that person. It can't just be, oh, I don't like people with records. It has to be, okay, I don't like that you have a conviction for assaulting your neighbor because I think that poses a safety risk to the rest of my tenants. It has to be like that.
Okay.
Now, someone on here just said no sex offenders should have a right. That's personal. Well, they didn't. It's not a question.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's tough. It's tough because I wasn't around for I wasn't doing this work when the JHA passed. And from what I understand, the carve out for sex offenders was a concession that activists made in exchange for that 3-year look back period. So they said like, okay, you really can't look at anything except convictions in the last 3 years. And in order to get that, what they did was they compromised with the sex offense registry. And I know that that's something that's come up a lot when I've been doing outreach. People want to know because like, that's, you know, the same thing. Like, okay, you know, somebody's done something bad. Like, should that follow them around for the rest of their life? Same principle. I mean, I understand why that was the compromise that was made, but like in talking with a lot of people, like that's a group of people that really needs housing. So I don't have like a really good solution. I'm like talking to people and trying to like figure out how to connect.
But what he's saying,
information with
this
people
doesn't apply for sex offenders.
It doesn't.
Sex offenders, just, you know,
this doesn't apply.
Yeah.
You're on the sex offender registry. This doesn't apply to you.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, like if it like, I would still say like, come like call us and like talk to us, because the more that I can be like, hey, like, because I'm like, the thing about this, the law being so new, is that we're still like in conversations with people in like the legal aid community and like activists and stuff. So this is like all still very much an evolving area. And so if that's something that's a concern, like I can bring that up, and I can't guarantee any results, but I can at least say, like, here's what I'm hearing when I'm doing outreach is people are really concerned about this, or like they're not concerned about it or whatever. So.
And see, people, we're bringing this information to let you to know information is possible. I mean, powerful. You have to know it, because I'm quite sure. I think, when is the moving season? Is it March when a lot of people move?
I think so. And then like in the summer.
In the spring.
Yeah. So this is a lot of questions
Be prepared.
Be prepared, because I know a couple of landlords. You know, they haven't told this to me. I know. I'm gonna ask a couple of people that I know about this law. So, what is exactly this law is called? So I know.
It's called the Just Housing Amendment.
Just Housing Amendment. Okay.
Yeah, JHA for short. And it is in the Cook County. Wow, I've said it so many times I can't remember how to say it. The Cook County Ordinance on Human Rights.
Okay. So this doesn't apply to DuPage County.
It does not.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sounds like a wrap.
but it applies to places outside of Chicago. It's not a city ordinance.
Okay.
So yeah.
Somebody said, please repeat her number. What's your number?
Oh, I don't think you said my number.
No, I didn't know. In fact, you can type it in if you
Yeah. Well, okay. I'll say it out loud and I'll type it in.
want. Okay.
So that's Uptown People's Law Center, 773-769-1411. And then, I mean, you can also just email me. I'll type it in too, but it's ashley@uplcchicago.org. So let me talk while I'm doing that so I don't feel so awkward.
Type it in. I hit it. Oh, let me put it. I'm sorry. I didn't put it in. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay.
This is great conversation, people. Great conversation.
Oh, can I see it?
And listen, if you guys want to call in, you're welcome to call in 872-297-6389. She's right here.
I am right here.
I don't know, the law is fairly new. I know I'd never heard of it. It's here.
I don't think a lot of people heard of it,
I never heard of this.
I've had,
How did you find about this, Mark?
it's my job to know what's going on with people's
Wow.
backgrounds.
I gotta
right?
give it to you.
It's my specialty.
I gotta give it to
People
you.
with backgrounds, right?
I gotta give it to you, Mark. You-
And I got people coming in all the time and say, man, look, I went and applied. They took my $50 and denied me. I applied again. They took my other $50. Another place denied me. So I said, what they keep denying you for? He said, I said, you got some kind of credit? He said, yeah, I got a car. I got a credit card. I said, why they deny it? He said, my background. So let me find out about that. And that's how I run in Ashley.
Wow.
And Alan Mills, our boss, who's a great attorney in this field.
Alan is my boss.
Right, he's a great individual, great lawyer. So
I don't know if he's watching. If he is, hi, Alan. I'm doing work right now. I promise.
Okay.
She's at work. We working her. We working over here.
So yeah, we consistently had that, because most of the people that come home and that have background have to live in
Shelters, halfway houses.
Yeah, not only that, but then when they get themselves together and get a job, get a car, because we do that here. We get
Right.
as soon as they get home. We don't wait a month or two or so. As soon as they get home, they come here within 3 days. They got a job. We're gonna support them with everything to get there. But when they get themselves together a year later, they still got to move in areas that not conducive to them staying out of jail.
And that's
Okay.
exactly what like the Just Housing Amendment is supposed to
Right.
help with. Is like, they got a job, they're like trying to rebuild, they're coming home, and like they should be able to live where they want to live.
Right.
And this law is supposed to help them do that.
And that's one of the things we kept seeing happen. So, guys say, I'm gonna change my life when I walk out the door and they still in there selling drugs outside my unit. So
That
we're
makes
trying
sense.
to get them out there. Everybody that comes home, and we focus on middle-aged individuals here at Teamwork Inglewood. So the majority of them want to just live the rest of their life and leave life of crime behind. And they don't want to see it in their place, So I think if a person works every day, does the right thing, he should be afforded that opportunity.
I agree. I
know
agree.
You do. I know you agree with me.
I definitely, yes. Oh, there we got a call.
Got a call.
They got a call us. Hey, this is my partner, y'all, Vera Giles Norris. Hey, partner.
Hey, how's it going? Can you all hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Loud and clear. Well, first of all, Martin G. Johnson, I had to commend you for such an amazing setup. This is state of the art as far
It's
as I'm
sweet.
concerned. And I also had to just say to you, Mark,
Yeah.
thank you for being Teamwork Inglewood and getting the information to the people. Hosea 4:6 says our people are destroyed for lack of knowledge.
Mm.
And just sitting here listening to the information that you're giving, I would like to say to the people, don't reject the knowledge, because it won't just affect you, but it affects your children and your children's children. And then to the young lady that's
Ashley.
given, I'm sorry, what's her name again?
Ashley.
Ashley. Okay, I'm sorry, Ashley. I missed your name.
That's all.
But
good.
yeah, Ashley and Alan. How can I forget? Ashley that works for Alan. So thank you for, answering questions. I took a lot of great notes, and I just wanted to call in just to at least be able to speak in this moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Martin and Mark. Like, this is really good because part of my job is outreach, and like, honestly, people are not going to like webinars that are put on by like weird like people are on Facebook. Like, people aren't on TikTok. They're not trying to find like fun new facts about law. So this is how you actually get the word out, and this is how you actually help people, and that's my job.
So you're willing to go out and speak to anyone at any
Yeah, pretty
organization,
much.
church, or anything? Right?
Yeah.
For free.
Yeah. Like,
Okay.
you have my contact info in the chat. Like, please, I would be happy to. I'll happy to talk to landlords, like whoever. People just like don't know about this law, and I think that's the first problem. Like, I would love to be arguing about like what the individualized assessment all means, but we are at step 0. Just nobody knows what it is.
Okay.
So thank you for.
You need clients, right?
I do.
You need, right?
I want to be
Okay.
busy.
Right. And you want to train landlords too.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds great.
I hope these landlords heard this now. I can't wait till one of them landlords when I go apply for my own apartment, and I want to see how they treat me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be waiting.
And this applies to home purchases too, right?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah. So hey,
Great. Well, I think this has been great.
yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Right. I want to thank you for coming, Martin. I want to thank you for hosting this.
Yeah.
No
Thank
problem.
And thank you, Ashley, for coming over to Teamwork
you. Of
Inglewood.
course. Yeah.
You know.
It's been great. You're great.
Thank you, Vera, for calling
Yeah,
in.
thank you,
Right,
Vera.
right.
Vera is one of our
Yeah.
navigators too.
Thank
Oh,
you.
okay.
Yes,
All
yes,
right.
she's
Was she on the call that other?
Yeah.
She's
Hi
on
again,
Clubhouse.
Vera.
Yeah.
Great, Vera. All right.
So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank Ashley. I want to thank Mark, Teamwork Inglewood. If you're looking for a job, come and see Mark now. Come ready to work now.
That's if you know, two things. We
Uh-oh,
narrow
go
it
ahead.
down. If you just got out of prison
Okay.
and you ain't been out less than 90 days, we want you. If you've been out over 90 days and you ain't did nothing, well, you might get in. But under 90 days, we're going to work hard to get you. We're going to give you bus cards for a month. We're going to buy a uniform. We're going to make sure you get to work that. And if you on your way to being late that first 30 days, call me up. I'm going to send a lift to pick you up. We're going to walk you through staying out of prison this time.
You gonna hold a
I'm
hand?
gonna hold a hand. If you got the electronic monitor thing on, we can get you movement in a matter of minutes. Have you straight. Come over here and put you right to work. All right. So anybody you know when they come home, don't have them laying around for a week talking about I can't get a job. Go on over there and see Mark at Teamwork Inglewood.
That actually reminded me of a really important thing I forgot to mention about the JHA. There are time limits. It's like 3 months, so don't worry about it too much. But if you apply to an apartment and somebody like tells you illegally that you've got a record they can't rent to, or they ask for a background check, call me immediately. Call me as soon as you can, because there's some like timeline stuff. So don't wait. Like, this doesn't apply to stuff, unfortunately, that was like a year or two ago. Like, do it now. Like, come talk to me now, and we'll try. And usually that's not a problem because people are trying to get in a house. But
Well, let me.
Yeah.
I know we got to get out of here.
Sorry.
I want to say this. Let me
It's
just say this,
important.
Mark. It just came to my mind.
yeah.
So what if I just suppose Mark is a property owner? I go to
Okay.
Mark, and so Mark asks me, without even me filling out anything, tell me a little bit about yourself. I'll tell Mark, hey, I've been locked up. I mean, I'm just volunteering this information, and see that.
I mean, I don't know why you would do that,
Right.
but
Too much-
but
too much
even if you
Right,
do,
right, right.
Right,
But
yeah.
then I get mad because he won't even allow me to fill out an application.
You shot yourself.
you should. Well,
Yeah.
like,
so
yes.
how could I prove that he discriminated against me? Didn't even give me a chance or something?
Well, okay, you in that case, I would say come talk to a lawyer. But like I mean, you did, because I would argue, I don't know how well this would go, but it was like you volunteered that information, and then after that you volunteered that information, he did not give you an application, and that is the only reason that he would not give you that application that we can see, because otherwise you're a perfectly qualified person off the street. They don't know anything about your credit. Like, there's no reason to stop you from filling out an application. The only reason that we can find is because you said that you had a record, and that's illegal. So that's what I would say.
I'd say too much self-disclosure.
Yeah, don't do that though.
It never worked out.
If it doesn't come up, don't
No,
say
that-
it. I think it's probably a good. That's
The
not.
laws wrote in the way so that they have no excuse.
Yeah.
other than
And that's
that.
because that's like
Correct.
why it's structured like that, right? Is so that they really remove the background check from everything else. So, try and take advantage of that, and wait for it to come up when it is supposed to come up in the process.
All
Well,
right.
you know,
Go ahead, Vera.
two
Go
things
ahead.
about- No, thank you. two things I'd like to see happen, Ashley. If you could repeat that number, please,
Yeah.
and if we could at least ping it.
I
Yeah.
can repeat it. 773-769-1411. 773-769-1411.
And if you want to
Okay.
do email, it's just ashley@uplcchicago.org. So Ashley at UPLC Chicago if you like email better.
And if you can't reach them, remember we've established a legal clinic here at Teamwork Inglewood, 815 West 63rd, 773-488-6600. Here to serve your expungent and sealing needs. But we will get you in contact with Ashley if you can't get it.
Yes.
All right. So sounds good.
And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, make sure that you're sharing this video.
Yes.
If this was a video and Martin D. Johnson was, maybe out chasing a crime scene, it would be thousands upon thousands of people on this live. So can you do us a favor? Help someone. Share the information. And if you'll be so kind to put a 1 in the chat, if you share the information, we will even like to know who's sharing. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
All right, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it, people. This is live, uncut, unedited, and this law is just for Illinois only. So somebody
Cook
put
County.
the Cook County.
only.
I'm sorry, Cook County. Because DuPage, that's right. Cook County. I'm sorry. Sorry, people.
Sorry, people in DuPage.
Sorry. That's it.
Thank you.
Y'all already know what it is.
You already know what it is.
What is it?
Live,
Uncut,
unedited.
Unedited.
You already know what it is. Live, uncut.
We